Welcome in. It is Big Ten today on a Tuesday. We are presented by Gatorade. It is truly great to have you with us. Dave Refs and Jake Butt, 18-team conference, 11 of them as we head into the final weekend of games in October, mathematically in the discussion to make it to the college football playoff. The expanded playoff is just great for the regular season.
I was going to say, it's been such a fun year, but now things are going to get turned up a notch. I mean, however you want to spin it, and there's, I think, 3 matchups, so 6 5-2 teams in our conference are colliding this weekend. Just speaks to the importance and gravity, and championships are won in November, so I can't wait to see these teams at their best, Dave.
No doubt, and you win one of those games, and you're 6-2, and that team you beat, right away that becomes a good win for you. I mean, you start making a case now. You're heading into November, 6-2.
It's fun.
It is fun. It's great. Yogi Roth is with us as well. And Yogi, I mean, it's a great time of year. I know you enjoy it as much as anyone.
Yeah, 13 one-score games in conference play thus far. Think about that. That's one more than it was a year ago. Last year, there's 31 total in conference play. So every one of these, to your points, is going to come down to the wire. I love just the playmaking ability that we continue to see. 7 of the nation's top 22 wide receivers in total yards coming out of the Big Ten. And I heard a couple coaches get asked that in their press availability already this week, and they're like, yeah, like this isn't your old like ground and pound, just Big Ten style of play. We're seeing playmakers emerge. So in these big games, explosive plays, I think will become the difference.
And we've talked about how fabulous the quarterback play is, among the highest rated quarterbacks in the country coming out of the Big Ten, including number 1 in passing efficiency, Fernando Mendoza. Let's get to our big story. As good as the middle of the league is, the top is fabulous. Once again, the Big Ten with the top 2 teams in the nation in the latest AP poll. The 3rd different combination of Big Ten teams at 1 and 2 this year. Indiana's number 2 ranking is the highest in school history. Oregon back up to 6 after dismantling Rutgers. Illinois and Michigan back in the poll as well this week at 23 and 25, respectively. Each of the top 3 played this week and won handily. And so at the top of the show here, I want to get your guys' thoughts on each one of those teams. Let's start with Ohio State. They are still number 1. They certainly look the part in blanking Wisconsin. What stands out as you assess the Buckeyes?
Well, I just think about just what we were just talking about here. The theme of college football this year is a bit about the parity and the competitiveness. And yet, for me, when I look at this, I think it's Ohio State and then a gap. Whether big or small, I believe there is a gap between the rest of college football. And it begs the question, which is crazy to ask, is this team better than last year's? Jeremiah Smith was asked that, I think, during practice time and media time, and Jeremiah Smith, said he thinks this 2025 team tops last year's. Pretty crazy. And then, Dave, I start to go through and down the list about what I like about this team. And let's start on the defensive side of the ball.
It's got to be a long list.
A very long list. I'm going to try to be tight with you. It's just an NFL defense, though. I mean, they're physical at all 3 levels, including the secondary. That's very important. But they're not just a physical defense. They're fast as you'll find in all of college football. Okay, physical, fast. Maybe the most important piece here is they play with high football IQ, and that allows their defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, to be multiple. They become unpredictable. It's really, really scary. Now, maybe most important of all, though, they have 2 top 15 picks in Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs, so it helps to have that high-level talent. Offensively, what we saw last week is what happens when we give the keys to the car to Julian Sayin. And he reminded us why he's a 5-star quarterback. The ability to distribute the ball with accuracy to Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. His pocket presence and command, he's been outstanding. If there's one area that I'm waiting to see emerge, it's the run game. That's probably the only piece of this team that I would say is not better than last year. I just don't think their backfield and run game is as good as it was with Henderson and Judkins. But where this really comes all together, though, is Coach Day. And there's something that's validating about winning a national championship. He's already been one of the best coaches in college football in terms of a record. But he's validated by saying, I am who I say I am. And he's allowed this team to kind of adapt and grow into a new defensive identity, or a new identity, a unique identity. And they're playing with such confidence, Yogi, that it is really scary for any team that has to face them down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to try to add on to that list that you have because all of it was really well said, man. Let's just start with them defensively. I think in college football, we call games every weekend here on the Big Ten Network. When you see teams play zone coverage, often you drop to areas. You drop to these zones. When you watch Ohio State play, to your point of like their functional football intelligence and how they play the game defensively, they're dropping to people. They're dropping to route combinations. Like they understand where the ball is going to go, which means that the windows in college feel like the windows in the NFL when you're playing against this Ohio State defense. So it is so impressive to watch this group play. And then they just come at you in waves. I mean, they are coming at you, whether it's rotating players, differing schemes, altering coverages. It's just a challenge. You almost have to play perfect on the other side. And I do want to give Wisconsin credit. They played their tail off, and they left it all on the grass. There wasn't a loaf. I go back and watch that game and say, okay, yeah, Luke Fickell has this team playing really hard. I know it's frustrating there, but it's against Ohio State, to your point. Offensively, and to Ryan Day and what they've done with Julian Sayin, I just think that the way they've allowed him to grow made me think back this morning, like, did they look at the calendar and say, okay, this game, we're going to try this scheme, and then we're just going to continue to just add a little bit more to his plate? Because that's what it looks like. Go back and watch the opening couple drives in the game against Texas. Watch the opening drive in this game. I think they threw it every snap but one on a scoring drive to kick off the party. So I just think that they've done a nice job of managing the confidence. And we know this thing. You guys know this thing at Ohio State better than anybody. It's a pressure cooker. And if you come out the gate and all of a sudden it's a couple interceptions, some turnovers, your eyes are a little jittery in the pocket as a quarterback, not only going to feel it within the facility because of the standard there, but you're going to feel it everywhere you walk on campus. I think the way they've managed the five-star and Julian Sayin, the praise and the blame and making sure they are all the same has been masterful. And that's why I think this team's progression is still going. I don't think they're anywhere near their ceiling. I think we're going to watch them continue to take steps. The question I have is what they haven't met yet, which is real adversity. That's going to be the biggest question. And I don't know when they're going to see it. It might be in the game against Michigan. It might be in advance of that coming off a bye. We'll see. But that is the one thing that I'm sure they're trying to prepare for in practice every day when they go Tuesdays and it's 1v1s. And those are things that you just have to try to curate. You really can't, though, until you get to game time.
I think the glue of this team, though, Dave, is with all the star power and talent, there is a true selflessness to their players. Not a selfishness, there's a selflessness. They cheer and celebrate one another, and really what that comes from is they have a complete clarity of their goal and purpose, which is to repeat as national champions. So talent, clarity, culture, coaching, they check every box.
It's been fabulous to watch, and I think there was a lot of question just with the personnel that they lost to the NFL draft of how can you repeat, how can you back this up? And they haven't done it yet. But again, they've been the number one team here for the bulk of the year after beating Texas. Now, Indiana is close on their heels, Yogi. They are number two. You heard Jake say he still thinks there's a pretty big gap between Ohio State and the rest of the country. Again, I think you can make an argument for Indiana as the best team in the country. Those are clearly the best two in my mind. I don't think there's any question. Indiana, the only other team to get votes at number one this week. They took apart Michigan State. What are you seeing from the Hoosiers?
Well, number one, how cool is this? I mean, it's just an amazing story. We talked about it last week a little bit. I heard you over the weekend, Coach Cignetti. You know, he got paid. It's amazing. Look what that program stands for now and what we thought of that program 5, 10, 25 years ago. Look where they sit. I think it's amazing. Two, if the season ends today, you got two teams in the Big Ten that have a bye in the CFP. That's pretty cool. I mean, to your point of how amazing is this expanded playoff. Now, Jake, I'm going to put my list up against your list, see which one is longer, okay, when we talk about Indiana. Let's just start with the quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, and the head coach, Sir Curt Cignetti. The way he has developed him has been phenomenal. And you look at Sig's track record, everywhere he's been, track it back to IUP in Pennsylvania, all the way to now, every player at that position has thrived. They've been the player of the year pretty much everywhere. They have been. Curtis Rourke wasn't that necessarily last year, but overall, like, they play at a premium level. Point being, that's just what they are and what they do. So let's start there. Wideouts. The yak is off the hook. Omar Cooper and company, you reference Surratt every weekend. I mean, they are making people miss after they catch the rock. I think that is something that goes unnoticed. Ohio State's receiving corps elite. Got to give credit to what this group has done. And then I want to flip it over to the defense. I mean, they're big time. I mean, we talk about Ohio State every weekend on defense. We need to talk about Brian Haynes' group defensively. What they're doing at the line of scrimmage, they're wrecking games, folks. They're wrecking games. They're finding ways to disrupt offensive backfields. They're getting pushback every single weekend against offensive lines. They're letting their linebackers, they're playing three linebackers now. There's three linebackers that just clean things up. In the back end, it was an area where you're kind of curious coming into the season, especially at the nickel position. They're killing it. Lou Moore, he just got a bunch of love around the Senior Bowl at the safety position, open field tackling, impressive. And then I go to special teams. I mean, they're lights out. They're core four for the most part all year long. So it's so impressive. And it's going to be fun to watch them play UCLA. 'Cause here's a UCLA team, 200 yards rushing in their last couple of games with Tim Skipper since he's been the head coach, and Jerry Neuheisel calling the plays. The defense is a challenge. I love what Coach Cignetti said. He knows what this team is now. He'll make sure his team is ready for the moment. But make no mistake, like the flash in the pan, the story, just having quarterbacks and wideouts, that is inaccurate, folks. Like, this team in the trenches is real. I'd love to see them play Ohio State. Maybe we get that taste in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, you go down the list of a championship team, and you have a top 3 to 5 quarterback, if not the best quarterback in college football. You have elite playmakers and a true wide receiver one in Surratt. You have upgraded trenches, which when you look at last year, as great as the season was for Indiana, they fell short because of the health and depth in the trenches. They beat Oregon because of their trench play. So Cignetti went out and upgraded his trenches, an elite championship defense, like you said, Yog. And then I look at the coaching, and I think that's the most important piece here. I would put up their two coordinators, the sum of their offensive and defensive play calling. I'd rank it among the best in all of college football. I mean, defensively, they made an elite Oregon offense look confused and completely out of sorts, and that's a compliment to the scheme and the execution by the players. And I would say what you're saying with Cignetti, talk about a leadership, talk about great leadership. He knows exactly the buttons to push. He called it coming after that great Illinois victory. He said, this is going to be a big challenge for our team going on the road to Iowa. He was exactly right. Now you're facing a UCLA team, and you listen to him talk, he's like, this team is 3-0 as far as I'm concerned, and rattles off 20 separate points of why they are a dangerous football team. Talk about motivating your team. Dave, I say this is no longer just a great story. This is a legitimate championship football team.
Yeah, and they may have the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, Fernando Mendoza has been so unbelievable. The stat that just made my jaw hit the ground this week, so they're at home, obviously coming up here against UCLA. Their last 3 home games, he has thrown 14 touchdown passes and 7 incompletions. 7 incompletions the last 3 home games total. And, of course, no interceptions, because he essentially never throws an interception. I mean, that's twice as many touchdown passes, incompletions, is in 3 games is just a mind-boggling stat. And, again, it just shows you how good this team is. Okay, what about the team that they beat on the road in Oregon? They were utterly dominant against Rutgers this week, a game that you saw in person. I mean, 750 yards just blows your mind. So what do we think of the Ducks as the third team in that group?
Just what a response this past weekend was. And, you know, obviously Oregon is a great team. And the big question was for me is, how are they going to look, particularly early in the game, coming off of a very physical loss and a cross-country road trip? And they wasted no time getting back into that game to just send a message that the game against Indiana was an anomaly. We have learned our lesson. The team that you're going to see tonight against Rutgers is who we are. Dante Moore played his best game of the season. The offensive line was completely dominant. It sounded like gunshots in the stadium when they were getting in their run game. They're doing these crack pulls and the lead blockers. Pop, pop, pop. They play with such a physicality. And I think one piece that's important here, well, 2 pieces. This is a young football team. I mean, they're playing Brandon Finney starting as their cornerback 1, 2 running backs in the backfield that are freshmen. DeCorian Moore is a freshman. They're rotating a lot of youth on both sides of the football. Well, that growth curve is exponential. You learn and take your biggest strides early in your career. So to me, as the season goes on, the youth that they're relying on will only continue to improve. And then the other piece is just like Ohio State last year, losses are okay. And they actually are beneficial if you learn from them. And Will Stein told us that he felt that he learned a lot from that Indiana game, that he felt like, hey, I should have just stuck with the run. Sometimes it's not necessarily about calling every play on your play sheet. Sometimes it's about being simple and sticking with what works. So you just kind of file that away to say, that is going to come back in handy later in the season when they need it in close football games. Will Stein, as a play caller, uses that loss as a lesson, Yo.
Yeah, well, I think among the three teams we're talking about, if you said, what do you know the most about among all three of these contenders in Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon? I know the most about Oregon, to your point, because of not just a loss, but because of the adverse scenario they had to bounce back from. You know, they lose at home. They don't lose a tough game on the road like maybe we all penciled in at Penn State. I thought that would be their loss this season. It wasn't the case. They get a dramatic win, as we all know how that story played out. They lose at home, and then to your point, they have to regroup. They have to, as Dan Lanning loves to say, take their medicine, and they did, to your point of being a young team and a hungry team. And I love just even the post game of watching Dante Moore and all the fellas, the offensive linemen, all get an interview together. I mean, it was great because you just saw the camaraderie in the team grow. And we all know, being around this game, when losses happen and adverse situations show up, you do one of two things. And in this environment, college football, you really do one of two things. They came together. They came together. They're competing together. It's beautiful to watch. It's also beautiful to watch these coordinators. You reference coordinators for Indiana. I'm with you with Mike Shanahan and Brian Haynes. Same deal here in Tosh Lupoy and the aforementioned Will Stein. You go back and you watch a couple play sequences, and I know you and Guy Haberman were all over it, but it is unique play after unique play after unique play, and they're all building on one another. And you study them week to week, everything gets carried over. So you think you have a tendency, as Wisconsin preparing for Autzen Stadium, you won't. They'll have another twist to that. That's what's so fun when I look at Oregon's schedule down the line. They get Wisconsin, and they get a bye, and then it's at Iowa, Minnesota on a Friday, SC, and at UW in a rivalry game. I mean, this is going to be an amazing finish for this young team. They have all the talent in the world. I wouldn't flinch if they had to go up against any of the top teams in America. I don't think anybody would. They've got all the capabilities to go take a real run. And by the end of the season, kind of what you said about Ohio State, Jake, they might be better than they were a year ago. Think about that for a minute. They had the all-time leading quarterback in terms of starts in the history of the game in Dylan Gabriel, and I think they have a chance to be better by the time we get into that heart of those last 4 games in November.
And I've been singing the praises of this expanded playoff format, and I think what you were talking about with Ohio State from last year and what you're talking about there, Yogi of Oregon has a chance to improve during the course of the year. That's the other thing that makes this great, that it really is about who's playing the best at the end. And Oregon, I think, has every chance in the world to be that team that hoists the national championship trophy there on a Monday night in January. We shall. Our big stat presented by Gatorade. PJ Fleck now stands alone. Minnesota's win over number 25 Nebraska Friday night was his 7th against a ranked team as the Gopher head coach. That is the most all time. It moved him past Bernie Bierman and Murray Warmath, both of whom led the Gophers to at least one national title. So it's fair to say they were both pretty good coaches. Fleck now with Ashley Adamson. It is today's big interview.
Coach, it is great to have you. Great to see you as always. I know you got a big one coming up at Iowa, but let's start real quick with that dominant win over Nebraska, another ranked win for you. So many things went right in that game. When you went back and watched the film, I'm curious, was there something that stood out that maybe you didn't notice or fully appreciate in the moment of the game?
Yeah, Ashley, thanks for having us on. One, we talked all week about the fundamentals and technique need to improve. We're playing really good football. Just we had to iron out a lot of our fundamentals and techniques, and I thought our guys did a great job of transferring that over into the game against Nebraska. I thought we won the line of scrimmage. I thought we were able to establish a really good run game, and different than some other Big Ten games. I mean, in all 3 of our other Big Ten games that we were played, and we were down so quick, so early, whether 14-0, 10-0, 21-3. And so we got out of the run game a lot quicker. And for this game, we were able to establish our identity, establish what we really wanted to do. And I thought our kids played incredibly hard. So it was really the fundamentals and techniques that we talked about all week to start with.
That defensive front in particular was just relentless. 9 sacks, constant pressure. How have you seen Danny Collins evolve and adjust in his first year as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, 9 sacks in a game doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, it's a record here at the University of Minnesota. And I think anytime you have sacks up front, it was our linebackers, it was the D-line, it was the secondary, it was everybody. I know our D-line gets a lot of credit, but it really starts top down when you're talking coverage. We have a lot of young corners playing right now, a lot of guys rotating into that position. I thought they played really well, tackled really well. And anytime you create those sacks, there's got to be great coverage on the back end. And our guys did a great job of mixing up coverages and disguises and really getting railed and hold on to the ball a little bit longer. And we knew we'd have to hold on to the ball, condense the pocket, and we were able to get some sacks. So Danny Collins is just, he's been around for 13 years around our program. I mean, I hired him like the second week I was at Western Michigan University, and he was a student coach. willing to sleep in a janitor closet, like not because I asked him, because he was sticking around the program. That was the only place to really sleep if you weren't going to sleep in a hallway. So he has just dedicated his entire life to football and his family, and it's so fun to watch how he takes what maybe he learned from Coach Smith or Coach Pinkham and Coach Rossi and Coach Heatherman and make it his own, because it really is the same type of defense and style, but he's been able to put his own stamp on it, and it's kind of a mixture between Coach Rossi and Coach Heatherman, and he's doing a really good job of leading the defense, leading the staff, and getting the most out of our players.
How do you teach your players the situational awareness and helping them see the bigger picture instead of just the next snap in front of them?
That's a great question, Ashley. You know, when you look at football and you look at the offensive side, if you play 60 snaps, yes, there's 60 plays, but those are 60 completely different situations, right? I mean, there's 60 minutes, so every single play is its own entity, and it has its own situation built in. Not just the situation in down a distance, but the situation based on what part of the field you're on, how the game is going, what's the flow look like. A 3rd and 3 from the plus 30-yard line is a very different call than the 3rd and 3 from the minus 30-yard line from the quarterback standpoint, because you're already guaranteed somewhat 3 points or at least an opportunity. What you can't do is get out of that. We can go on and on, whether it's backed up, coming out, short yardage, goal line, green zone, tight green, 1st, 2nd, 3rd down. I mean, 2-minute, 4-minute. There's all these things that you've got to get really good at. But I think most games are lost, not won. And I think that the games that are won are lost just less than the other team lost it. So when you look at college football, who screws it up a little bit less? But what we want to do here is we want to teach our players how to win, teach our coaches how to win. We're not perfect. We don't win them all. And there's times we've lost it a little bit less than the other opponent. But you've got to do everything you can to make your team the smartest team they can be. Smarter players are usually better players. And I'm not talking IQ, and I'm not talking ACT scores or grades. I'm talking about functionality within the situation, within the play. Can you maximize that? And smarter teams are better teams as well. So we're doing everything we can to give ourselves an advantage when we do get in a game, that we are more prepared in situational football than our opponent.
Well, and you will be playing a very smart team with a coach who I know you have a ton of respect for this weekend, and Kirk Ferentz. You won at Kinnick Stadium a couple of years ago. What does it take to be successful there? A place that I heard you say just the other day is maybe the hardest venue to win in?
Yeah, I think you know this. It is one of the most hostile environments in all of college football, and they do such a great job of supporting the Iowa Hawkeyes. Fans absolutely love what they do and how they do it. I mean, they've had 2 coaches in 50-plus years. The cultural sustainability is really the beacon of what I think everybody strives for in college football, but maybe can't obtain. And that is a true credit to Kirk Ferentz, their administration, their players, the style they play with, Coach Parker. It truly is, I think, the model as you kind of look for that sustainability. So we know we're going to have to play our best football. I have a ton of respect for what Iowa does and how they've done it. I mean, when you're a young head football coach and you're building, you want cultural sustainability, you kind of look and study how Kirk has done it. And ton of respect for him, ton of respect for Iowa. For 3 hours, I mean, it is one of the greatest rivalries in all of college football, that's for sure, where the fan bases don't get along very much. And it is high energy. And it is one of the greatest rivalries. And I'm honored to be able to coach in it. We had a team meeting this morning talking about we get to be part of this tradition, 119th meeting. There'll be another 119 after us, and there were 118 before us. So we have a small opportunity and a small window to find a way to play our best football for 3 hours against one of the best teams in the country and one of the best rivalries in the country to bring Floyd back to Minneapolis.
Well, Coach, just 2 last things before we let you go, because I appreciate you making the time. So much of your culture that you talk about is built on growth and learning from failure. So I'm curious, what's something that you've personally maybe changed your mind on or evolved in your approach to coaching over the last year or 2?
Another great question, Ashley. I think the one thing I tell people when people ask, what have you learned the most? I think control is for amateurs. I think we're having a really hard time in coaching right now that the lack of control is really affecting a lot of people, whether that's with players' agents or the money or NIL or the portal or, all of those things, right? And we're stuck in this model of like what used to be. Well, the one thing that always stays the same in college football is everything changes. So I think as a head football coach, you have to look at how can I impact my team and what control do I really have? And how can I give other people that empower those other people to be the best they could possibly be, whether that's coaches, whether those are players, and you have to adapt. I'm not going to change really who I am. but I have adapted our program. We are a transformational program. That doesn't mean transactions can't be a piece of that transformational program, along with education. So I think that control piece, that control is for amateurs. I think as coaches, we've always wanted like our fingerprint on every single thing in the program. And when we haven't had that necessarily that type of control, and there's other aspects that have more control now, you have to learn how to shift through all of that. And really, it's about empowering other people. And I think that's probably what I've learned the most.
I absolutely love that. I feel like that's a great parenting mantra too. Like I'm going to make a poster in my house that just says "Control is for amateurs." Makes me feel better.
The parenting and coach, I've learned that our job is constant crisis interrupted by brief success. That is coaching. That is parenting. And you better celebrate when your kids love you. And you better, when they tell you love you and they're having a great day, you better really appreciate that. When you win, you better really appreciate that, because that brief success or that brief feeling that you're a good parent does not last long.
I couldn't love that. The perfect analogy. Well, and the last thing we'll end on with is family, because I know your wife, Heather, has been a huge part of this journey with you, and she's really involved in the program, and you hear players talk about what she means. What's something that she's taught you about leadership or balance that's carried into how you coach?
Yeah, that I don't have to be perfect. I think we live in a world that, wants everybody to be 13-0, 12-0, run for 200 yards, throw for 200 yards. Don't have anybody score points against you. And if you do, why? There's a great song by Van Morrison, "Why Must I Always Explain?" I play it through my speakers every single week in season, because it really is. We explain for a living, but she allows me, to be me. And I love Minnesota because they allow me to be me. But when you're in a relationship and you're a college football wife and you're in this crazy profession, she makes me truly a better person, which then I can be a better coach. And she allows me to be the most genuine, authentic, real me. She holds me accountable for everything that I say I am, and she's not afraid to do that. She's got the Italian heart with the Irish passion, and it's combined. So she's spicy, that's for sure. But she is the greatest person in my life. She is a rock of our family. She's the connector of our entire family, and she's incredibly selfless. I can't remember the last time that she had done something just for herself that only benefited Heather. Mm. I don't think I've ever seen her have anything that way or do anything that way or make a decision based on that. And that's why I love her so much. And she's made me a better man. She's made me a better coach, and has ultimately made our program better by just allowing me to be a better man on a daily basis and holding me accountable for everything that I say I am. And that's one thing to talk about. It's another thing to actually do. So she's a pretty special woman.
Oh, Coach, I appreciate you sharing all of that. And one of the things I love in listening to interviews with you is that I always learn a lot more than just about football. So thank you for the perspective. I know that fans are eager to get that Bronze Pig trophy back. Best of luck on Saturday. And thank you again for the time. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having us on, Ashley. Good luck parenting. Row the boat, Sky Mountain. Go Gophers.
A football doubleheader kicks off with Rutgers against Purdue. Then 23rd ranked Illinois collides with Washington in Seattle. Coverage begins with countdown to kickoff at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. That Illinois-Washington game, a huge one for both of those teams, both at 5-2 on the year. They're trying to stay in the CFP hunt. No hard and fast rules. Nothing happens in a vacuum, but it feels like two lost teams in the Big Ten would have an amazing shot at getting in, and we have 8 of them. 4 others play this week as well: Northwestern Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, USC, Michigan, the others. Trojans off this week. Wolverines battle Michigan State. So, Yogi, the floor is yours. There are so many interesting teams in this 2-loss group. Where do you want to start? Who do you think has the best chance of making a run and maybe getting into the CFP?
I don't know. I think they all have had their moments this season. I can't wait to watch SC coming off a bye. But I think when you project out their schedules, the one that I think we'd all probably agree on has the most challenging path, but one that I wouldn't bet against them is Iowa. Look at the steps they have made, and look at what tough of an out they are. They remind me a lot of Michigan, Jake, when you look at how Michigan has played. But for Mark Gronowski, to me, it reminds me a lot of whether it was Cam Ward or whether it was Max Brosmer. They came from the FCS level, they come up, they learn a little bit, it's a little rough at first, and all of a sudden they start going. And I'm watching this offense move a little bit. I'm watching this offensive line. This defense absolutely can suffocate opponents. They don't make a lot of mistakes, so I don't know if they'll win out, but boy, when you look at who they have to play, Minnesota this weekend, Oregon, SC, Michigan State, and then Nebraska to finish off on a Friday, I mean, they're going to play a bunch of these teams that have 2 losses. I don't think they're going to lose all of these. I mean, they're going to win a bunch of games. Can they go unscathed? We'll see. Can't turn the ball over. Got to play clean. But the line of scrimmage, I trust them, and I love the growth of Gronowski as the season has gone on.
Yeah, and hopefully he just continues to get healthier and healthier. Great competitive win last weekend, rivalry game, and then they're hosting Oregon. I made the point in the Oregon-Rutgers game to tell the Oregon fans, Kinnick is a very tough place to play, so they get that boost. For me, I'm looking at Michigan, and I'm glad we're asking the question on this Tuesday rather than the prior Tuesday coming off the USC game, Dave, because talk about a discrepancy in how I felt. But here's the thing, the team that took the field last weekend against Washington, it's undeniable, in my opinion, that team is capable of beating anyone on any given Saturday in college football. And this is the benefit of the 12-team structure, is you have the ability to grow after losses. In the USC game, really, really poor tackling. Well, then you play that dangerous Husky offense, and they only had two missed tackles against Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman, 2 guys that make a living in making you miss. And then offensively, I thought that was Chip Lindsey's best game all season. It was complimentary. It was balanced. The play call sequencing had the Huskies on their heels all day. Oh, and they did it without their RB1, with an injured left tackle, without their top 2 tight ends, and Bryce Underwood played his best game. So you look down the stretch, there's a real chance, Yog, that's a win and get in type game, Ohio State, Michigan there in late November, which would just add to the drama of that rivalry.
Well, think about last Tuesday, right? You'd be talking about SC. You'd be like, oh, here come the Trojans. They're knocking on the door. Away they go. I can't wait to see what they do after this bye week. I think it's a critical moment. Out here in LA, you can feel it. You watch this offense. They've been relatively unstoppable moving the ball. They hurt themselves at times in the Notre Dame game, but they got to stop the run. Did it against Michigan, clearly struggled against Notre Dame. I think the team that I'm most excited to watch of this group, though, is Nebraska. How do they respond after that loss to Minnesota? We just heard from PJ Fleck, one of the better wins they've had in the last couple seasons. I mean, it was impressive to watch. I mean, they won the line of scrimmage. What does Nebraska do? They're going to play a Northwestern team. I just got done calling that game. They're impressive at the line of scrimmage. They're going to move the line of scrimmage. I can't wait to watch that team show up this weekend in this game.
Really, we could talk the whole show making a case for each one of these teams. That's why it's been such a fun year. But this Illinois-Washington game this weekend is so important to me. The winner of this game has a real good chance of getting into that college football playoff. And, Washington finds themselves in the exact same position as Michigan did. They were on the road. It was an important game and played so far below their standard that they're at a little bit of a crossroads of what this season's going to be. Well, now you're back home, a place they really don't lose. Can Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston and just the whole team get back to playing at their standard? And then you look at the schedule, they have a chance to run the table before hosting Oregon in a home rivalry game. So the schedule sets up nice. The same is true for Illinois, though. I mean, it's been said a number of times, you have the best 2 losses in college football to the number 1 and number 2 team. Brett Bielema expects his team to continue to get healthier starting this week. This year was always supposed to be the year for Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini, but man, this weekend, they got to have it, Yo.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think for Illinois, it's the most critical weekend of their season, right? Because to your point, you know what the schedule is moving on from this. None of them are gimmies, but I think they'll be favored moving forward. It's not style points, but you just got to feel good about them because their loss was so bad to Indiana, top 2 team in the country, earlier this season. They're coming off a bye. Washington just plays teams coming off a bye, and they're going to not flinch in this environment. And they're kind of like what we talked about with Oregon. They just met adversity on the road. I thought they'd go in Ann Arbor, and I thought they would have won that game. I thought they would have moved the ball down the field. They struggled running the football, some bad turnovers, uncharacteristic. Now Damon Williams, you're back in the confines of Husky Stadium. How do you navigate that? How do you deal with the pressures now of, okay, this is a huge game for this program in year 2 for Jed Fish. And I love how the matchups. So whenever you talk about Washington, I think you got to talk about scheme. And when you talk about Illinois, you got to talk about scheme and Barry Lunny, and you look at what he does offensively against Coach Walters defensively, and then Jed Call plays against Coach Henry. I mean, this is going to be a real fun game to watch, much like we projected the Michigan UW game to be. There's just turnovers. Can't turn the ball over in these types of games. You got 2 losses, and backs are a little against the wall. If you get a win, this could catapult you into a different conversation. And for both of these programs, for Washington specifically, think about where they were. A couple years ago, they played in the Natty. Last year, obviously, reset. They get this win. This is huge. And for all those AP voters out there, UW's playing on the Big Ten Network. Like, if they win, they need to be a top 25 team.
Oh, no doubt about that. It's interesting you mentioned Ryan Walters in there. There's familiarity. Remember, Ryan Walters obviously was Brett Bielema's defensive coordinator. Who that favors? That's anybody's guess, but certainly Ryan Walters knows a lot about philosophically what Brett Bielema thinks, and vice versa. Brett Bielema knows a lot about what Ryan Walters thinks. Actual big-time rivalry games. 7 games in the Big Ten this weekend. 4 of the 5 ranked teams are in action. The second-ranked Hoosiers host UCLA. Wisconsin will be at number 6, Oregon. We've already mentioned our huge game, Illinois and Washington. 2 trophy games as well. Number 25, Michigan at Michigan State, along with Iowa and Minnesota. So let's talk about those trophy games. And Yogi, we start with Floyd of Rosedale. Both of these teams coming off really impressive wins. They're both among those 5 and 2 teams that we were just talking about. So what sways the balance here as one tries to move very squarely into that CFP picture?
Well, for Minnesota, they got to win the rushing battle, and they got to do it on the road. I mean, they haven't won a game on the road, right? You go with Cal to kick off the season. We know what happened against Ohio State. Can they find a win on the road? And for Drake Lindsey, can he take that next step on the road? I think that he can. I think this offense can do it. Darius Taylor coming back is huge. We saw what that did for this team. 30 yards rushing against Purdue, and then he goes for, 148 and with 4 grabs. I just think he's such an impactful player. And then on the flip side, for Iowa, we kind of talked about it in that earlier block. Like, in a vacuum, you take Iowa all the time because you know that they can win in a phone booth. You know the offense and defensive lines are going to win at the point of attack. They're going to have a good scheme. The biggest thing that I think will turn this game is, can either team create explosive plays? Whether that's the naked bootleg game that Gronowski ran against Penn State to kind of put the game on ice to that last drive to go get the win, or could it be a receiver making a play down the field? Can it be Lemeke Brockington? Can some of these playmakers from Minnesota show up? They got gloved up last time they played against Purdue, if we're going to be honest. How did they do against man-to-man coverage? They're going to see an aggressive style of defense from Phil Parker. If they can get open and make plays down the field, they're going to have a shot to go win this game. If not, it's going to be standard Iowa football, and I think they get a win at home again.
This is just going to be an absolute battle, in my opinion. I mean, it's going to be a close game. It historically is. And I'm looking at the mental aspect of this game. I mean, it's a rivalry game. It's a trophy game. We laid it out for you, the importance for the winner of this game and how it sets you up for the rest of the season. So for me, I'm looking at which coach better prepares their team for that moment. And really, I think it's which team avoids the big mistake in a big moment late in the game, or which team better responds when they do make a mistake in this game. That's going to be the emotional aspect of it. And then from a coordinator standpoint, it's Danny Collins against Tim Lester. I think Tim Lester is one of, if not the most underrated play callers in all of college football. It used to be a running joke about the Hawkeye offense. No one makes those jokes this year, and that's with an injured Mark Gronowski. How does Danny Collins and that Minnesota defensive line game plan for a dominant Hawkeye offensive line? And again, you talk about explosive plays. Tim Lester, when Mark Gronowski had that quarterback keeper, the only 2 people, that was called on the fly, the only 2 people that knew that was called in the moment, that was Mark and Tim. They did that on the fly, saying you can go ahead and keep it. So there's going to be some wrinkles mixed into this game. How does each team adjust?
And they're figuring out their identity here. I mean, Iowa's had the same identity for a long time. They're executing their identity, I think, better than they were earlier this year. Last 2 games, they've run it for 455 yards. It just feels like they're able to do what they want to do, and they made Gronowski a huge part of that run game, and obviously he essentially won the game for them with his legs over the weekend. Okay, so that is one of our 2 rivalry games. The other one is the battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy. And I think you could look at Michigan and Michigan State on paper, and you could say this feels like a mismatch. Michigan State is really struggling. Michigan coming off one of its best performances, maybe its best performance of the year, and yet you played in this rivalry, and I think you would be the first to tell us it doesn't matter about any of that. This is going to be a huge slugfest.
It's a fist fight, yeah, and really, like, this is one of those games where in the off season or when you come back on campus, you're asked, hey, what was your record against your rival? And you either perk up with excitement or you kind of, slouch your shoulders because you lost this game, and that speaks to the emotional importance. And yes, let's factor in the seasons, because that's a real piece of this. And we could say the truth is, for Michigan State, you win this game and you ruin Michigan's season, that now adds so much joy to your season. But Michigan understands that, and Sharon Moore spoke at length about the importance of this rivalry. From a matchup standpoint, can Michigan State match the intensity of at the line of scrimmage when Michigan has the football? Can they contain Bryce Underwood's legs? And then the flip side is, if there's ever been a weak point and a shakiness, it's been Michigan's secondary. We know Childs and Marsh and some of these Spartan weapons, they have the ability to make you pay. Can Childs make Michigan's defense pay while also avoiding the big mistake that's always been the storyline here, and especially so in these rivalry games, Yog?
Yeah, look, I think for Michigan State to win this game in the manner which gives them the best opportunity to spoil a season, their two best players are going to have to show up in a massive way. We're talking about Aiden Childs and Nick Marsh. Childs has had flashes. We've all seen that. Can you piece it together? Can you continue to feed one of the top receivers, I think, in America, in Nick Marsh? If they can do that, they'll have a chance. The challenge for Michigan, it's kind of rinse and repeat game plan. You think of Damon Williams, and he's a dual threat player, much like Aiden Childs, different style in which they run and can move within the pocket, but it's going to be a relatively controlled rush. You want to keep Childs in the pocket throughout this game. If he can get outside of it, look out. And I think both of these teams, they do want to control the ball, right? You're going to see two teams huddle. You're going to see teams want to run the football. You're going to see a bunch of outside zone. I mean, it's going to be an offensive line clinic if they run the football like they hope to in this game. And I thought, watching Michigan State back last weekend, you go watch the early parts of that game, they're doing some good things against Indiana. And that's kind of been their story all season. There's moments where you're like, yep, that's it. And then there's moments where it's not. So they have to play consistent. And I'm just curious, on the emotional side, you played it in this one, Jake. You got to be steady. And the steadier team, to me, will be the one that comes out victorious. For Michigan State, if they can get through the first half, feel really good about themselves, look out, see if they can get this big upset.
And to your point, the emotional side, momentum, it absolutely plays a factor. And I know this as well as anybody. Special teams plays a factor in these close games and these battles.
Is there a special teams moment in Michigan State you're thinking about it all?
But I would say, though, Dave, if you're Michigan State and if you're Jonathan Smith, I would empty the clip. I would come in here with a few fakes in mind, something to try to swing momentum to your favor. And if you're Michigan, you got to be prepared for that.
Yes, I mean, that was part of what made Mark D'Antonio so great, right? Was that he always had something up his sleeve, and we saw him have incredible success with it. I always look forward to that game. It's
going to be fun.
It is intense. It's intense every single year, and again, it's intense kind of regardless of the records. We're going to wrap things. Less than 2 weeks away from the start of the hoop season, Purdue's Braden Smith, the reigning Big Ten Player of the Year, the only unanimous choice to the AP preseason All-American team, which was released yesterday. He's the second Boilermaker in the last 3 seasons to make the team unanimously, joining Zach Edey. Michigan's Yaxel Lendeborg also named to that 5-man preseason All-American team. Lendeborg, a transfer from UAB, was considered the #1 player in the portal this offseason. Michigan is 7th in the AP preseason poll. Purdue, of course, the preseason #1. Back to football. As we remind you, we got countdown to kickoff coming your way on Saturday. It follows Big Ten Tailgate. That comes your way at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by countdown to kickoff at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, both here on the Big Ten Network Tailgate, coming at you from Nebraska this week. Stories from the road to finish things off. And Yogi, you were in Evanston for Northwestern and Purdue. What's your big takeaway?
Well, number one, you can't walk down the street on campus and not be asked, hey, you know Dave Revson? Hey, tell me a little bit about Dave Revson.
Yeah.
So that was amazing.
That's not true.
And then I'll just go to the game. The game was amazing. It was the 30-year anniversary of the team went to the Rose Bowl. And as I learned throughout the week and being on campus and a chance to catch up with a good friend, Gary Barnett, who was, of course, was the head coach there at the time, you really learned what that did to the community of Chicago and what it did to campus and how it spurred so many young athletes at the time that were 10 years old to say, I want to go play there. I mean, it was just a beautiful moment, seeing Pat Fitzgerald on the field as well. It was really cool to be on the lake, the final game this season on the lake. First time for me ever being there. So, Dave, it was great to be at your old spot, man.
Yeah, really amazing to see Pat Fitzgerald back there this weekend, too. A guy, I would argue, after Gary Barnett, no one has done more for Northwestern football than Pat Fitzgerald. There just wouldn't be Pat Fitzgerald without Gary Barnett. He'd need to recruit him, but it was wonderful he came back. How about for you in New Jersey?
Yeah, for me, I want to give a shout out to Greg Schiano and Kevin McConnell. They were able to hook up. My in-laws live in New Jersey, so they hooked them up with field passes and tickets, and I got to spend some time with them pregame, which is always special. And then think about all the historic Oregon offenses, and we're doing a record watch. They nearly had their most yards in the history. I just was in the booth like, no way am I calling maybe the best offensive performance in Oregon history. Didn't quite get there, but still fun.
When 750 yards isn't your best performance ever, it tells you how good you've been through the years. We'll see you tomorrow. Jerry DiNardo joins me. See you then.